Well, welcome everyone. I appreciate you joining us tonight. Tonight is the Supportive Mental Health Practices for Early Educators webinar. I am your presenter. I'm Mary Muhs, and I'm the Department Chair for Early Childhood Education at Rasmussen University. And I am thrilled that you have joined us tonight, taking some time out of your busy week. I know the closer we get to the Christmas holidays, the busier it gets for everyone. Schools are ending, people are on break, people take vacations, spending time with family. If you don't celebrate the Christmas holiday, you might be having just come off of Hanukkah. You might be celebrating other holidays that are true to your faith. It's just a busy time of year for everybody, and just the understanding of a new year is enough to freak everybody out. So I'm glad you took some time out of your day to be here with me. So I am Mary. I've been with Rasmussen University for almost I guess it's 11 years now, somewhere in that area. And I work with the early childhood education programs and human service programs here at Rasmussen. We do have at Rasmussen early childhood education degrees fully online. So all of your coursework is in online formats. We do have programs that range from a certificate to an associate degree to a bachelor completer degree. And we also offer some classes that can prepare you to achieve your CDA credential. So if you need more information, I encourage you to first visit our website page, which is the rasmussen.edu for education. And if you have more questions, reach out to one of our admissions advisors through there. You can do a chat with one during pretty normal business hours. You can also request information or request someone to call you. Or if you have questions, you can call me or email me, and then I will get you to an admissions advisor as well. We do have some information sessions, so our next information session is December 21st at 8 p.m. You can register by going to that same website page. It is free, and it's about a half hour, 40 minutes long. Longer if need be. I'm there to answer all the questions that you might have, but we do try to give you a lot of information to help you make your decisions to achieving your educational journey more complete. Navigating the WebEx room. So you are in a WebEx training room. You've been muted to avoid any background noise because I know that you're likely at home and you're likely with family around you or nearby. So we want to make sure that everyone can hear and not be distracted by the background noise around you. I do recommend you using your computer speakers and microphone, but some of you I see are coming in via your cell phone. You might be using a tablet. They should all work for you, but sometimes audio gets to be a bit tricky, and we've had some quite interesting issues with WebEx and similar tools these past few days. So, you know, if something happens and your audio isn't working, you can flip to the other type of audio and call in using your phone, or you can switch and go back the other way. Sometimes you just have to leave the room and come back in and do a hard reset, and know that that's perfectly okay. It should be open to you to do that. If you have any questions or comments, we're going to use the chat box tonight. So the chat box is located on your bottom right of your screen. And when you go ahead and put your comments in the chat box there, before you press send, make sure it says all participants in the drop-down that's right above where you type. That way everyone can see your comment. And we ask that you do that because typically if you have a question, it's a question other people have too. Or if you have words of wisdom to share or examples to share or thoughts, you know, those things can be beneficial to others as well. And we learn from one another in these sessions. I think that's really important. It helps make our community a little bit smaller. Now, we do offer one in-service hour, one professional development hour, depending on how you say it. Every state does it a little bit differently. We will send you a certificate of participation by email within 48 business hours. That means by the end of the day on Monday. And I do let you know that we typically do it on Friday afternoon, but it's holidays. And sometimes the team that is sending out these emails is off on Fridays. So then they wouldn't be sent until Monday. So no, if you don't receive it by Monday evening at end of business, then you can let me know. That way I can double check and make sure that yours was sent to you. You do want to always check your junk and spam folders though. Sometimes they go there, especially with Yahoo, or if you have a real secure kind of site through a school system or through a company that has like Uber security. Sometimes they go to the junk or spam folder instead. Sometimes they don't. It's always a never-ending uncertainty. But we will send those by email to you so that you can use it in your state, however your state allows you to do so. You will need to submit that document to your state registry system, however that works on your own for it to be included. All right, so let's get to our sessions. Looks like we got some more Florida folks. Hello, Lorraine. All right, so let's get started. This is a really important topic for me. This past year and a half, it seems like there can't be enough discussion and training on how to take care of yourself. Self-care is a big word, wellness is a big word. It's a lot of information, and it's so much deeper and so much more, there's so much more to it than a bubble bath and a glass of wine at the end of the day. Well, those things are really nice, and we'll add those in later. It's a lot more than just that, and I think it's really important for us as early childhood educators to realize that we are caring for human beings, and we're in a very caring profession. And sometimes when you give so much to others, you have to make sure you're filling yourself and you're taking care of yourself even more than you do in other professions. You know, an accountant, for example, they do work with other people. They are, you know, they do work with people, but they don't care for them in the same way we do. They don't give necessarily as much of themselves as early childhood educators are known to give to their children and their families. So it's really important for you to take care of yourself first and foremost. And it takes time. It does take time. It takes intention, and it takes purpose. And so I'm hoping that we'll set you off on 2022. Oh, scary thought. 2022 with a different mindset. To take care of yourself first and foremost. So our objectives tonight are to get you to be able to articulate the status of your own mental health. I know it's a big thought. And then also employ proactive and reactive strategies to support your mental health. Whoops, this keeps bumping. So first, let's define what mental health really is, okay? So I think that's important for us to keep in mind. Mental health can be thought of in three different categories. It can be thought of as emotional, it can be thought of as psychological, or social well-being. So it's not just, you know, oh, I'm stressed, so my mental health must be at risk. Are you also, you know, sad or depressed? Are you also healthy as far as your physiological and your psychological health? Are you healthy socially? How do you feel in social situations? So it's a way to look at yourself that's not just your physical health, like how much you weigh, or how, you know, if you're diabetic or you're not diabetic, or if you, you know, I'm trying to think of other things, but they're not coming to my mind. You know, basically your physical health is one thing, but your mental health is completely different. And it's important to remember that it is complex. And it's not just, like I said, taking care of yourself with a bubble bath and a glass of wine at the end of the night. That can be helpful, but it's not all that there is to it. And the other thing to remember too is that your mental health in our field specifically, in the helping professions, is more crucial because you are caring for other individuals. So not only is your mental health like helping you be successful in your day-to-day work with them and your day-to-day interactions, but your mental health is also setting an example for their mental health. We know children feed off of us as adults, right? We know that when we're stressed, the kids kind of are stressed too. They're buzzing with us, right? When we're sad, they're kind of down too. When you're happy, they're happy. So it's something to remember that if you take care of yourself first, then you can more easily take care of those around you. Oh, this keeps popping. It's that old thing when you're on an airplane, right? They say put your oxygen mask on yourself first and then help your child. And your first instinct is to help your child. But if you pass out because you don't have oxygen, you're not going to be no use to your child who's going to need your help, right? Same idea. We're not going to be of any use to the children and families in our care if we are not mentally healthy ourselves, if we're not taking care of our own well-being. Now, there are some warning signs, and I don't want to get depressive right off the bat, but I think it's important to recognize warning signs. And just because you might have one of them doesn't mean you're like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm you know, in dire straits. It's just these are things to keep in mind. And when they have many of them compiling together, that's when you might look at yourself and say, I really might need some assistance here. Warning signs like eating or sleeping too much or too little. I do that all the time. It's the holidays, for goodness sakes, right? People don't sleep as well. We definitely eat too much. So that in of itself is not necessarily a warning sign, but that in combination with many others becomes a warning sign. Pulling away from people and usual activities, having low or no energy, feeling numb or like nothing matters, okay? Having unexplained aches and pains, it could be the time of year, it could be the season, right? Getting cold, you get some more aches and pains, or is it in combination with some of these others that might make you be more concerned? Feeling helpless or hopeless, smoking, drinking, or using drugs at all or more than usual, feeling unusually confused or forgetful. Maybe you're edgy, you're angry, you're upset, you're worried. You may even be a little bit nervous or scared. You might yell or fight with friends more than normal. There might be severe mood swings. You're happy one second, you're really upset at another second, little things set you off, really making trouble for some of those relationships you might have, whether it be your personal relationships, it could be your work relationships. Having persistent thoughts or memories that you can't get out of your head, okay? These could be negative thoughts, hopefully not. It could just be memories from long ago that just linger and don't go away. Hearing voices or believing things that aren't true. Thinking of harming yourself and others, and the inability to perform daily tasks. You can see that there's definitely a progression here from some of those that are relatively common, right, to those that are much more of a concern and much more of an issue. And sometimes we talk about some of these, and we see it in ourselves, and we see some of these in other people, and we think, are they going through that term called burnout, right? You've heard of burnout before, right? Where burnout is actually a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by excessive or prolonged stress. So burnout, sometimes we think of as just, oh, that person's just done. They just don't want to do this anymore. But really, it's much deeper than that. And it's usually something that occurs over a period of time. And it's something that you need to be aware of. I'm always a big proponent that, this is a really hard field to go into. We're very emotionally taxed. We're very emotionally open. We take on the trauma and the situations and the worry and the stress of all the children and families that we care for, and that's a lot to handle. And it can easily become, you can easily become exhausted from it, especially if you work in a very challenging environment or community that has a lot going on, right? It can be even more challenging. And so it's important to take your own temperature, take your own pulse. Where am I on the burnout, I guess, what am I thinking? The burnout thermometer, right? Am I down low or am I getting up high? And if you look at these warning signs, how many of them are me? Right, versus how many of them are me on a regular basis, and that's a key. Like I said, we could all eat and sleep too little or too much, depending on what's going on. But how much of these are consistent? How much of these are all the time? And that's what you want to really pay attention to. Now, how do you know all this stuff, right? How do you know really, right? Because, like I said, I eat a lot. It's the holidays, right? So how do I really know that my professional quality of life is suffering or is challenged right now? Well, there's some terminology out there, and I'll show you some tools here in a second, that talk about understanding whether you have compassion satisfaction or compassion fatigue. And we're in a very compassion-driven field, right? We're the helpers, right? We're the ones that are there to provide support to these littles and their families and to one another. And we then have our own families, and we have our own issues at home that compound our compassion need. And sometimes when you have compassion fatigue, it goes into burnout, or it becomes more of a secondary trauma type situation, which is more severe. So let's talk about this a little bit. Let's kind of see if we can identify where we are. And I'm going to encourage you in a few minutes after this call, after we're done, is to take a very short quiz on this website. So when I show it to you, you'll know, and then I'll make sure to give you the link in the chat box. So let's talk about some vocabulary. What does I mean? And this is from the ProQual website, Professional Quality of Life, and I found it really helpful, really simple to understand, really basic. And their definitions of compassion, satisfaction, and fatigue are as positive aspects of working as a helper or negative aspects of working as a helper. So what might be some positive aspects of working as a helper? For those of you on this call, what might be some positive aspects? You can add them to the chat. What gives you satisfaction as a helper? And this does qualify as any helping profession. So if you think about doctors and nurses, and you think about paramedics and firefighters, and you think of anybody that helps, any teacher, any educator, yeah, watching others grow, learning new things, seeing smiles, watching kids succeed. I agree. Hey, Cheryl, good to see you. Making a difference in their lives. Yeah, you get to see that, right? And the one thing I always say in early childhood is that we need to make the most of those things that we see, those smiles, when the light bulb goes off in that child's head and they get it and they get excited about something, because we only have them for a short period of time and then they move on. And we don't actually see the long-term fruits of our labor, right? So we have to really focus on those moments that we're with the children and really make the most of those moments, because that's what's going to give us that satisfaction, right? That's what's going to give us these. We don't see them grow up to be adults in most cases. And when we do, it's kind of scary, right? To think, oh my gosh, I had this childhood 4-year-old and now they're 25. But you get to see that rarely. So we have to really focus on what's happening now. So what are some negative aspects of working as a helper? Long hours, yep. Stress, frustrated. A lot of those negative emotions, right? Underappreciated, low appreciation, yep. Stress. Just feeling like there's a lot on your plate. Not caring for yourself, absolutely. Absolutely. Long hours. I would say not standing up for yourself, right? Getting worn out. Yep. Floating from room to room. That's really important, Julia, because you don't develop those relationships with the children in the same way as their primary teachers do if you're always floating. So you don't get that benefit of those relationships. COVID, yeah, taking advantage of big expectations, yeah. So understanding what those are is important, okay? Understanding the difference between compassion satisfaction and compassion fatigue is important. Burnout is when you start to feel overwhelmed. It's when the work-related hopelessness and feelings of inefficacy happen, that you just can't do it. You can't do it right. You can't do it well enough. You're not going to be able to do it, that you are not able to move on, right? You just feel overwhelmed. Now, burnout's a common term in early childhood, and it's because we work in a caring profession, because we work as helpers and we take on that trauma. But it can become even more severe and more important to get assistance and help. It's where the primary traumatic stress is a direct target of an event. So we've had some of these happen to us this past year and a half, from everything from George Floyd, his murder, the protests, and all of the protests then all summer long involving his situation and others that occurred. We had a very tumultuous election, which very much divided the country and still does. We had a pandemic, which is just unheard of, right? We haven't had that since 1918. Pretty much no one alive remembers. If they do, they were very small children then, if at all. I think it's important for us to remember that. That is a traumatic stress situation. And we're not meant to handle these situations beautifully because we don't get them all the time, right? It's not something we deal with all the time. And it's really important to remember that we're dealing with it, but so are the children, and so are the children and their families. They're all dealing with it too, and so it's all compounded upon one another. And so it makes it very challenging, okay? And makes it very hard to remain positive. And so we have to find ways to, one, understand where we are with compassion, satisfaction, or fatigue. And then we have to figure out what we can do to be proactive and then reactive. So proactive when we can, but also recognize and react to it when it comes upon us. So compassion, satisfaction, let's look at this a little bit deeper. It's pleasure and satisfaction derived from working and helping in caregiving systems. It's providing care. You might be personally satisfied with the system and the way that it's working for you and for your children and families. It could be your work with your colleagues. Could be really satisfying. You know, maybe your job's really hard, but man, your coworkers really help you and bring you along, and you work really well together, and you love that. It could be beliefs about yourself. You could just be really personally satisfied with the work that you're doing. And really that idea and understanding of making a difference is something I think we all need to remember, that the impact we have every day on children makes a difference in their lives going forward. Compassion fatigue, again, it talks about those negative aspects of the helping profession in all the same ways, okay? It can be small and it can be large depending on the length, the longevity, and the compounding factors that build upon it. So perhaps you were already struggling in your role. You're already feeling a little bit down. Maybe you're feeling a little bit fatigued with your job, and you're kind of like, oh, can I continue to do this? And then the pandemic comes, and then you're in an area that's affected by protests, and there's, you know, destruction in your community, or you have children and families that are just depressed because of what's going on. All of that compounds on one another. And if you can't recognize that, it could really do damage. And so it's important to take some steps back and pay attention. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So this website, procall.org, has a quality of life survey scale, okay? Very short, one page. You actually put yourself with a score. 1, you feel it never, and 5, you feel it very often. And then it coaches you how to score it. So each one of these fits into a different category, and it allows you to see where you're at and kind of how satisfied you are, where you're at. Are you in satisfaction, compassion satisfaction, or are you more in the compassion fatigue? And where within that compassion fatigue are you located? So let me make sure that I get this up here for you. I just realized I don't have the link handy, but I will grab it. And it's a really easy survey to take. It is free. You do not have to pay anything or sign up for anything, that kind of thing. And it is, like I said, one page. So it's not too challenging at all to be able to complete even tonight after our call is over. And I encourage you to take it after our call is over because 1, then you won't forget. And 2, you'll be able to then start thinking tomorrow about some of the strategies, or even tonight about some of the strategies that you want to employ to support yourself going forward. So here is the link in the chat. So you might want to copy that or open it and save it and come back to the presentation so that you're able to participate. So some strategies, some proactive and reactive strategies. Now some of these might sound familiar, but I'm always a person that says, you know, we kind of need to remind ourselves of some of these things because in the moment, you're going to go with your gut reaction, just like kids do, right? Little 2-year-olds, when they are feeling threatened or feeling frustrated, they might go with their gut and bite another child, right? That's kind of their gut reaction. And you might think, oh, they know better, but really in that moment, do they really know better? Not necessarily. Their emotions take over. Their brain chemistry says, you know, you need to do something about this, and you're going to do this, and it just kind of happens. Same thing with us as adults. When we're in a stressful situation, we're tired, we're exhausted, we're feeling like we might be on the verge of burnout, you're not going to be in the right mind to necessarily think of what you can do to help get yourself out of it or to help get yourself through it. So we need to be reminded of these things so that we can continue to move forward. But first and foremost, I would be really remiss if I did not mention that there are really important things to remember when it comes to talking about your mental health. The first one is, if you have thoughts of suicide, if you have thoughts of wanting to end your life, you need to call and talk to somebody right now, please. It is really important that you reach out for the help that is there for you. And the Suicide Prevention Hotline is there to provide that support and get you connected with people in your area that can help you. We also have a Veterans Crisis Line. If you are a veteran of our United States military, you can try using the Crisis Line, where they are specially trained to work with veterans who have a whole host of other traumatic and mental health needs based upon their experiences. And then there's also support through our Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA. And you can find information on their website where there's helpful strategies and documentation and other websites and local and national resources that can give you support that you need. But know that you're never, ever alone. You're never, ever far away from somebody that can help you. The most important thing is to just say something. Just say something. So there's different types of stress. And so stress can be immediate and stress can be long-term. And immediate stress, or things that are happening that day, you come home after work and you're like, oh, I'm so tense and it was a really rough day. What are some things I can do to help me relax? I would say the first one is recognize that you feel stressed, recognize that you are tense, that your body is tense, and think about ways you can relax your physical body. Things like something so simple like a stress ball that you can use to get out some of that immediate frustration in a productive fashion. Aromatherapy can be really helpful. I know there's these roll-on tubes that you can get with some of the aromatherapy scents that are for relaxation, for clarity of thinking, for stress relief, and those can really make a difference. And these are immediate stress relievers. These are things that aren't necessarily meant for you to do every day, all day, but they are things that can definitely help get you back into a frame of mind where you're able to move forward in a more productive fashion. Things like yoga or meditation, a bubble bath, of course, with a glass of wine could work for that immediate stress relief, right? Going outside. More and more research talks to us about how outdoors, just nature itself, nothing fancy, no big hikes, just being outside on your porch where you're breathing the fresh air can make a big difference in how you feel. I know there's a lot of social media sites that advocate for 10-15 minutes outside every day. Even though it might be freezing, it may not be 10 minutes, maybe it's 5, so you don't get you don't freeze, but it's helpful to be outside in that fresh air. Lorraine suggests chewing gum can also be a stress reliever, and I would agree. It's not necessarily eating, which we can say is a stress reliever, one that we probably want to avoid, but chewing gum can definitely help give that same feeling, that same sensory feeling that you would need. And these are good things to do, and you might have other ones too. Magda says music, and if you have others, put it into the chat. Sometimes we need that reminder of what it is. I know I like to listen to podcasts recently. They're not very long. I can listen to them in the car, or I was doing some walks before it got really cold, and I would listen to a podcast on my walk. Those were really nice, and they were in subjects that were interesting to me, not work-related necessarily, but fun. Oh my gosh, yes, Jennifer, puppy snuggles. Grounding, and I don't know if this is what you mean, Eliana, but putting your feet in grass. Of course, it wouldn't be really helpful where we are now because it's going to snow, but getting your feet grounded. Play-Doh, yes, Play-Doh, painting, coloring, using those coloring books, right, that are adult coloring books. The tapping solution. Elizabeth, I know about the tapping solution, yes. And doTERRA oils, diamond painting. Oh my gosh, that sounds so stressful for me. Singing mani-pedis, yes. Think about those things. Have your arsenal of items that you can pull from to like a sensory adult sensory table. Absolutely, Lorraine. Absolutely. We give it to kids. Why don't we take that upon ourselves too, right? Maybe a little spot in your bedroom or in your house where you can sit down and it's in a comfy chair. You have your favorite books near you, just like we would have a little cozy area in a classroom, right? Think about how we create that for kids. Do the same for yourself. But that's not necessarily enough, right? But that's not necessarily enough. Sometimes we have more things going on. And while that may help immediately, we need to look at things that are going to help us and continue to help us day after day after day, and building habits, or keeping, like I said, that toolbox of things that you can pull from when you need to. And one of them is remembering mindfulness. So mindfulness practices, you hear this term a lot lately, and a lot of people equate it to just being doing meditation. And while that can be a part of mindfulness practices, it's not everything, okay? So here's some questions for you. Do you realize when you become distracted from a task, what helps bring you back to that present moment? So if you realize you're becoming distracted from a task, what helps bring you back from that moment? Any thoughts? In what areas of your body do you carry tension? When you notice this tension, how do you respond? So taking a deep breath, Jan, yep. Tuning into your immediate senses, yes, smell, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. Those shoulders, yep. That's my issue all the time. Focus on your breathing, yes. Stop and take a breath and a moment to refocus. Sometimes that means counting. You know, sometimes I know there's an old way of working with children when you wanted them to do something that they weren't doing, right? And we used to, I know I used to do this before, and I've learned new strategies, but they used to count and say 1, 2, 3. But honestly, I was thinking that was probably more for me than for the child, because I was probably like, okay, I need to calm myself down, so I'm going to count, you know, so that I can get myself focused back again. Count to 10, yeah. Prayer and meditation, yes. Some people have bracelets on that have the doTERRA oils or the different senses in them, and they'll use those to count or to feel as part of a sensory kind of focus, bringing them back to the present. Mindfulness is being in the now. It's being present. It's realizing what's going on around you. And sometimes when you don't realize that in the moment, that builds up and you start piling those on, those moments all day long, that you haven't brought yourself back to the present. And you start to get, I guess you could say, away from yourself. And you don't realize when you're stressed until you're beyond being stressed, right? And you're over the top. You're frustrated. You're singing badly. That's fun. But thinking about how to keep yourself in the moment and recognizing when you need to be back in the moment. So what helps you listen attentively to children and parents in the midst of busyness and distractions of early childhood settings? What helps keep you mindful of what's going on in the moment? When you're in the moment too, you often can handle things more quickly and can work through problems more efficiently because you are in the moment. You're not imagining what will happen. You're not thinking back to what did happen. You're actually acting at that time, and so you're able to handle situations more efficiently. Some things to remember when you're trying to be mindful, and some of you have already mentioned this. Staying out of your head. Yes, Magda. Staying out of your head. And I should talk, right? I'm terrible at it. But we all probably are, is letting our head kind of dictate our life. And we'll talk about that more in a second. But some of the things you can do is really simple. Is use the stop method. And the stop method would be is to stop, okay? Take a deep breath. watch what's happening, observe yourself. How am I feeling? How am I thinking? Okay, and then proceed, however you need to proceed. So really taking stock in what's happening inside of you. So it's not just observing what's going on and the children that are arguing in front of you and you feel your tensions rising. It's more of how am I feeling? I'm feeling my tensions rise. Why? Because this is the third time that I've had to stop them in the past 5 minutes. I'm getting really frustrated. How can I now respond in a more productive and a more supportive fashion than the fashion that I was going to do before I stopped? So stop, take a deep breath, observe your surroundings and yourself, and then proceed forward. Some other strategies for mindfulness practice, which you guys have already brought up, deep belly breathing. Okay, deep belly breathing, that really the one that makes you feel like Santa, right? Big belly breathing. Progressive relaxation. So sometimes it's really hard to just sit down and relax, right? I know Brenda mentioned the shoulders. You know, that's me. When I need to relax, I have to remember to roll my shoulders and let them fall because my body is too tense. Doing a mental body scan, right? Starting with your toes and progressing all the way up through your feet, your knees, your legs, your buttocks, your back, your shoulders, your arms, your neck, your head, and really how does it feel? Where is it tense? Where is it loose? Where does it hurt? Where does it not? That kind of thing. And then being really intentional with your refocusing. So somebody else mentioned that too. Really, that stop method. Stop. Okay. How do I feel? How am I reacting? Okay, now I can proceed forward because I know why or I know how I'm feeling and how that might affect what's going to happen next. Sometimes it does help to refocus or look away, walk away, say, excuse me for a moment. I need to take a deep breath. Just turn around and then turn back. Sometimes that helps. I know some people use the tapping method, and that's a whole nother session to talk about, to help you refocus yourself so that you can focus on the tapping versus what else is going on around you. And I know there's websites that you can get more information on that if you'd like. Some people use fidgets or soft stuffed toys to keep themselves in the moment during meetings or during tense situations so that they have a chance to get some of that frustration out by squeezing it or squishing it or moving it around and manipulating it. The other thing we need to do is watch our self-talk, and it came up too in our chat, your self-talk. And I know that's, kind of one of those phrases that people always say, watch how you talk to yourself, but it is so very true. This keeps bouncing ahead of me. First, you have to identify, though, that you're having negative self-talk. And I would say that a majority of our self-talk is negative, not positive. It's pretty rare that you're like, hey, Mary, you did that. Good for you. Or, hey, I really think how you handled this situation was really supportive. I don't tell myself that. I really don't. I typically will find fault with everything that I do, even if it was something successful. Even if the outcomes were good, I would still find fault with it. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't as good as it could be. I could have done something different. So I need to identify my negative self-talk. And negative self-talk can come in 4 different ways. First of all, it can be personalizing. It's all my fault. I did. It's all my fault. It's all because of me. That's why it happened. That's why I'm feeling this way is because of me. Magnifying. What do you think magnifying means? Just what it says, that you're making it bigger than it seems, bigger than it was. You're taking it all out of perspective, okay? When I say that to it, oh, totally, Helen. Totally, Helen. Would I say that to my friend who needs me? Or am I just punishing myself? We are gluttons for punishment of ourselves. Catastrophizing. I don't know if I said that properly. That's a tricky word to say. That's where it's like everything is the end of the world, right? It's so bad. Everything's the end of the world. And then polarizing, opposite of what it would normally be. Okay, so these are 4 different ways you can talk to yourself that are very negative and very unsupportive of your mental health. So you have to flip your thinking, okay? And I use flip-flops here just because it helped me feel better when it was snowing yesterday. First of all, some examples. These are pretty basic examples, but this is what we need to do. We need to stop, recognize that we are speaking to ourselves in a way that we would not speak to our friend who needed us, and flip the language. So if you're thinking, I failed and I embarrassed myself, instead saying, I'm proud of myself for even trying. That took courage. Sounds simple to do, doesn't it? Negative, I've never done this before and I'll be bad at it. Positive would be, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to learn and grow from others. I know I do this, oddly enough, the example that I thought of for this for me was at conferences. So I was attending a lot of conferences as part of my job, and some I'd present at, some I'd just attend, and some both. And I remember hearing from participants all the time, well, yeah, like all these workshops, these are all things that I've done before. So like, I don't really want to sit through another session again. And I would hear that throughout the different conversations at tables, or sometimes I'd see it, you know, in suggestions or comments that, you know, these are all things that I've done before, so I don't, you know why I'm here, or why do I need to sit through another training on this subject? And I kept thinking to myself, because you can always learn something new. So instead of telling yourself, oh, yep, I've already taken all the trainings on that subject matter before, I just sat through 2 webinars on that, you know, so I know it all already. You may not know it all. You don't know for sure. And you'll probably learn something new, or you will revalidate, that's not a term, I guess, you'll validate things that you should have paid attention to the first time that maybe you forgot about. And you're always going to hear it in a different light, yes, Brenda, from one other person. And so that's just a simple example, but you could either walk into a conference and be like, yeah, I'm here because I'm supposed to be here, and yeah, I'm having to take this training again because I was told to by my director, but I don't really want to do it because I take this training every year. Well, it might be a new presenter. It might be a new way of delivery. You'll have different people in your group, which are going to give different insight to the subject, and it might just validate things that you already knew. This whole session might be stuff that you already know. And likely, a lot of it is stuff that you're already familiar with. But sometimes you need to be reminded of those things. Yep, okay. Yeah, I know, I sat through that. I remember that, and I sure thought it was a great idea then, and now I think it's still a great idea. So how am I going to make sure I do this now? And not just say, oh yeah, that's a great idea, file it away. So always flip your thinking. Everyday self-talk practices that can really help. So you can identify your negative self-talk traps. Where does it always happen? How does it always happen? Maybe in response to a particular person that you interact with during the day, and you suddenly find yourself negative talking to yourself, right? Really whipping yourself good for something that happened or didn't happen. Then check in with your feelings. Okay, so I'm feeling really negative. I just said that to myself. So how am I really feeling about that? Sometimes you really don't care as much as you think you do. Sometimes you can flip your talk and realize that what you're looking at is something that can really be a good opportunity and not something negative. You can also find the humor in it. And you're like, oh my gosh, here I go again. I'm talking to myself again, trying to really, you know, I keep kicking myself for doing that. I wonder what I can do differently next time. You can also surround yourself with more positive individuals. And now that sounds really great and can't always happen, but sometimes you can help bring out the positive in other people and realize that they're more positive than you thought. And then give yourself positive affirmations. I remember a training I attended probably a good like 25 years ago. And one of the things that they said was to take and put on your mirror in your bathroom Post-it notes or note cards or whatever, and on it tell yourself things, right? Like today is going to be a positive day, and to be specific as much as you can. So instead of just saying it's going to be a good day, that's not super positive. But today I'm going to walk into my job and I'm going to smile at all the children. Today I'm going to listen to my coworker with a positive attitude. Today I'm going to do whatever it is, put it up on your mirror so every morning you see this, and every morning you tell yourself these things. I also know people that put with their phone alarms, if they set their alarm by their phone or they have their phone by their alarm, that at the same time their alarm goes off, there's a message that pops up on their phone that tells them something good about today. Like, today I am going to blank. I am thankful to be alive one more day, right? We should always be thankful for that, especially after the pandemic. We should all be thankful for that. So give yourself positive affirmations and find ways to do it, whether it's notes at your desk, whether it's notes in your car where your visor comes down, so when you check out your mask in the mirror before you go into your job, you can double check that positive affirmation. This is a whole subject in itself, and we're not going to go into a lot of details about this because it's just really important, is improving your sleep quality. You might get only 6 hours of sleep because that's all that you can get, because you've got kids, you've got to get up early, you go to bed late, you've got commitments. It's the quality of the sleep that matters just as much, if not more, than the quantity of your sleep. So are you having a good quality sleep? Are you sleeping soundly? Are you getting enough REM sleep? That's really important. So take a look at your sleep quality, and there's a lot of different ways to do that with your Fitbits, your iWatches, talking to your doctor, but that's something to really pay attention to. How are you falling asleep, and how much sleep, or what kind of sleep are you getting? Had to throw that in there. Share visual reminders. So the best way to predict the future is to create it. And that's something that a life coach that I was recently working with helped me see, is the best way to predict the future is to create it. So if you want to have a particular way of thinking, give yourself visual reminders of that way of thinking. So, something so simple is if you really want to go on a specific kind of vacation, and you want to go to a particular place, make your screensaver on your computer the photos and such of that place that you want to go to. Maybe you want to one day retire in an RV and travel the country. Find ways to give yourself little bits of that as you move forward. Maybe follow someone on social media who has decided to do that with their life. There's a few people out there now that are publicized as doing that. Find visual reminders of the life that you want to lead. Find visual reminders of stress relief that help you feel better. Maybe your area of stress relief is going to the beach. You love the beach. Especially the ocean beach, with the crashing waves and the birds. So find yourself some images, some photos that you can put up at your desk. Find yourself some relaxation sounds before you go to bed of the ocean waves crashing on the shore. The best way to predict the future is to create it. And the most important thing is to take one step at a time. And I think that's really critical. This is a lot to think about. And if you're a person who finds out that you are struggling a little bit more than you thought, or by taking that assessment, or you're a person that has a bunch of those green squares that I showed earlier, and you have a whole bunch of those going, it's going to take some time. We all know that, right? We have probably, many of us have been in weight loss situations where that takes time, right? You can't do it overnight, and if you do, it could be really scary, the repercussions of that. So you want to make sure that you take one step at a time, start with one piece of your stressful life, and try to work with it. Oh, I love that, Brenda. Setting an appointment with yourself as a priority helps too. Yeah, something that you're looking forward to. Yeah, that's a great idea. And so what I want to do now is I want you to take us just a second, and I want you to find a pen or a note app on your phone, something that you can jot a note down. And I want you to think of one thing that you would like to tackle first when it comes to your mental health. Just one thing. What is that little first step that you, as this puppy, can take to improve your outlook for 2022? Would that mean you want to look at your quality of sleep? You want to work on your self-talk? You want to work on being present and that mindfulness thing, right? Not overreacting in the moment, keeping yourself grounded. Maybe you're wanting to work on, talking, like I said, self-talk, talking to yourself positively instead of negatively every day. What are some of the things that you can do, or what's one thing, I should say, that you can do to get started on that? There's one more activity that really makes a difference when it comes to your mental health and staying in a positive mindset that allows you to continue to move forward in a proactive manner, and that's gratitude. And you might have gratitude journals. You may have kept one. I know if you're Oprah fans, they had gratitude journals. There's a whole bunch of the practices like that where you write it down, what you are grateful for that day. And thank you for sharing some of those right here on Flip Flop Your Thinking. This is lovely. And I love this photo too, Helen. I think you're such a cutie pie. But gratitude can make you remember what is good about your life. So often, as we talked with the self-talk and with other things, we get really in the weeds. We get down in the dumps, and we don't remember that there are a lot of good things in our life, even when it's really hard, even if everything feels like it's falling apart. There are good things that we need to remember and be grateful for. And remembering those things can make a big difference in our outlook and in our mental health. Whoops. So I do have a mindfulness exercise, and it's something that I found really helpful from a training today that I attended. So I decided to add this in because I think it's really lovely, and it's a great way to kind of end a day. It's a great way to end a year. I know with my gratitude journal, I don't know if anyone felt this way too, I always felt like I was saying the same thing, and I was not specific enough. So it was always coming across the same, and I was always trying to seek those things that I was grateful for instead of letting them come to me. And so I always struggled with that, Helen. And I guess it's the perfectionist in me that makes it a challenge. But I do like being grateful and finding that moment of gratitude, either when I'm at church, sometimes when I'm out walking, and sometimes just when I need to take a few minutes. And so what I would like everyone to do is find a comfortable spot that you're sitting down, okay? I don't think anybody's driving, but if you're sitting down, I want you to kind of put your feet flat on the floor as much as you can, but get in a comfortable seated position where you're relaxed and there's not any pressure on any parts of your body that might give you pain or stress. And I want you to close your eyes as best you can. And I want you to take a couple of deep breaths. So some of those big belly breaths that I mentioned, where you've got the big Santa belly when you breathe in and out. Let your awareness move to your immediate environment. All the things you can smell, taste, touch, see, and hear. Say to yourself, "For this, I am grateful." Next, bring your mind to those people in your life to whom you are close, your friends, family, partner, coworkers. Say to yourself, "For this, I am grateful." Next, turn your attention onto yourself. You are a unique individual, blessed with imagination, the ability to communicate, to learn from the past and plan for the future, to overcome any pain you may be experiencing. Say to yourself, "For this, I am grateful." Finally, Rest in the realization that life is a precious gift, that you have been born into a period of immense prosperity, that you have the gift of health, culture, and access to spiritual teachings. Say to yourself, for this I am grateful. You can open your eyes. Thank you. For you, I am grateful. I encourage you to take a few moments and remember for what you are grateful as you end 2022 or end 2021 and move into 2022. And that is all for this evening. Thank you very much. Yes, I will. Here's the link one more time. Good idea. I know it. That was so relaxing when she did that this morning. I immediately emailed my supervisor and asked her if I could please use that tonight. I know, it's very relaxing and I think very empowering. And those are words, that last paragraph, you know, that you have been born into a period of immense prosperity, that you have the gift of health, culture, and access to spiritual teachings. I love that. You know, we have so much to be grateful for. Oh, thank you, Lorraine. I will ask if I can share that. If I can share that exercise, I will include it with the email tomorrow, or with the email with the certificate. So I'll make sure to put that together for you. I will include this presentation in a PDF, and then if I can include this too, I will add that to the PDF so that you have that. I loved it too. Thank you, everyone. I do hope you all have an amazing end of your school year or end of your calendar year, an amazing holiday if you are celebrating. I hope you had an amazing holiday if you celebrated Hanukkah, and have one if you are celebrating Christmas and other holidays coming up. And I hope that you have an amazing start to your new year. And I hope to see you again next year. Mindfulness with kids, Amy, is great. Absolutely. It is, there's some great resources. I know there's a book called My Magic Breath, and that is a great children's book about breathing and using your breath to kind of focus yourself. And focus your thinking. Great, great book. We actually had the author as part of one of the authors as part of our Week of the Young Child celebration a couple of years ago. Breath Like a Bear, I've heard that one too, yep. Yeah, well, thank you all very much. I do hope you have a great evening and a good start to your new year. You know, I don't remember who the author is. Let me look really quickly here. My brain is not functioning with that much information. Nick Ortner is the main author, and then we had Allison Taylor on with us and working with us for the Week of the Young Child. So here's an Amazon link too. I'll grab it for you. Here's the Amazon link if you're looking for that book at least. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. And I do encourage you, like I mentioned, to do that survey. That one-page survey is really helpful, and it allows you to know where you stand with your mental health. And I put the quote or the link there as well. All right. Have a great night, everyone.